right? So you got to be clear about this, right? I don't think it goes, how as comically as I've said it, right? However, it's actually more value adding for you in terms of the different kinds of people, the different kinds of cultures, etc. Right? Because if you are wanting to be a FMCG professional, right, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, right, you're not going to be handling, some Pune somewhere or whatever. Right? You don't want to become a Pune brand manager, right? You don't want to become a, how do you say, head of sales of Pune, right? So you got to be, obviously, you got to get out of the well. And if you want to get out of the well, this is the best time in your life to do it. You should actually be looking forward to it, because he is right in a way. Even from the sales context, right, different cultures have very different work ethics, different ways of working. The motivators of people, right, in different parts of India are very different. What motivates people is actually very different. Right? The way people evaluate pros and cons of a certain proposition, right, is very different in the East compared to the West. Yeah? Yeah.
So, given that context, right, suppose you're from Pune and your posting is closer to Pune, wouldn't you understand people over there better? Wouldn't it be better to put you there?
See, the question was, as I said, don't take it so literally, the comic that I made, right? The point was that you will learn far more if I go and stay in Guwahati, because that place I've never seen. Pune, though I have stayed most of my life, right? So I would know 50% of that. There I am completely in a black hole, and therefore my appreciation of what undergoes out there, what are the kind of hardships that people face out there, right? What are the kind of competition that I have out there? So in a very holistic manner, my knowledge is in a far bigger vacuum in that geography. That's the point. You're never a perfect anywhere. I mean, even if you stay in Bombay for, let's say, for example, 2 decades, you will never know all the roads in Bombay. But you still know most probably after 2 decades better of Bombay compared to, let's say, Ludhiana. Yeah. Does that answer? No. Yeah? Okay. I think, but so that's one. The second thing that's going to be also there as a challenge is that, actually that's the one that was there on the slide, is that invariably in the first year or so, you will, so you all don't have as much challenge because many of you all have worked for about a few years, right, is what I got to hear in terms of the profile that I was shared as well as the number of people who raised. So you have seen some amount of corporate life. However, trust me, when you are going to join as managers in various companies, right, the expectations that you will be carrying on your head, right, people will have from you are going to be of a different level altogether. You are going to be paid commensurately also, right? However, the expectations are going to be of a different level altogether. Yeah, and what that does is, so I have personally undergone that, right? So there was a certain personality that I carried when I was in campus, right? I felt it was just an extension, so I joined my job. Right? I must have got the biggest whacking of my life in, I think, the 3rd or 4th month, right? That boss of mine, the guy with that, is now a very close friend, right? We keep bumping into each other once a year at least. We are in different organizations now, right? But he must have given me the biggest whacking of my life, right? And the gist of it, right, leave aside the technicality of what was there, right, was that I'm no longer in campus. Now I've got deliverables on my head, right? I have not only deliverables that you might have had even in, let's say, for example, if I was working in TCS or somewhere else, right? I am now responsible for people under me, right? Their satisfaction of the job, their how do you say, achievement of their feeling of achievement, right? Their wherewithal and their goodness of life is dependent on me as a leader, since I am now a manager. And that's a big difference that you will see. Many of you all, some of you all might have gone through it, right? And therefore then, I simply cannot carry on in the same mindset that I had earlier. So that's going to be a big transition that you will see, right? And that applies to any job that you take up, not only in FMCG sales and marketing. Yeah. Any other question that you had in mind besides this, in this? No? Okay, all right. How is the career growth in marketing? Who was that? Yeah, can you just elaborate? What do you want?
Yeah, sir. When do we start as when we start as marketing trainee in this area? So how do we grow like 5 years down the line and 10 years down the line? What are the opportunities and what are the responsibilities that we face?
So you want some kind of a arithmetical formula?
No, no, no. It's kind of growth ladder and
So there are, so the first, as I said, the first 4-5 years are going to be reasonably arithmetic, unless you are one of those outliers, right? Both sides, yeah. Right. But it's going to be reasonably arithmetic, right? So as I said, most companies you will be insisted that your first couple of stints, which spans across 3 to 5 years, will be in sales, right? And they will be spanning across a couple of geographies at least, right? Different kinds of roles, right? So it's not as if you will do the same old thing. Different scale of roles, right? Different level of span that you will have under you, right? Therefore, testing you for leadership and things on that front, right? Your ability to basically, manage people, team, different kinds of people, and all that kind of stuff, right? So that all gets tested, right? And this is the way to test it out. However, post that period, right, there is no arithmetic. So, just to give you an example, I think for the first 12 years of my life, I was a sales and marketing guy. I had done only sales and marketing roles. That zigzag that I talked about, something like that. Yeah. I suddenly landed up heading supply chain in Britannia, which I had never done. Right now, it was a combination of, how do you say, the company willing to take the risk and me willing to take the risk. However, the reason I am saying that example, right, is that there is no arithmetic post the initial few years. So it depends on, it depends on your caliber, it depends on how you have performed, right. It also depends on what your, what is being seen as a potential USP that you bring onto the table. Right. So then you are going to be a product that can be marketed by yourself, by your own performance, by the way you have interacted with people, etc. So beyond 5 years, I think it's going to be foolish for you to expect that there is an arithmetic to your career. That's how pleasing my reply can be. Does that answer?
yes, but then
You're not smiling.
no, no, no.
Okay.
But as you said, after 12 years, like you go different like into SCM. So then,
So that was just an example. I mean, everyone doesn't. It is just that there was a quirk of, as I said, a combination of circumstances where I was ready to take a risk. It was a big risk in my career. Right? I had never done something like that. So managing, let's say, for example, how do you say, we've got 60 factories, we've got 300 SKUs, right? We've got 50 warehouses, we've got 3,500 distributors, and managing the entire matrix that runs on something like this is not easy. And it's something that I'd never done.
so whatever like in past 12 years, whatever we have done, so does it become irrelevant completely?
It doesn't become irrelevant, no, right? In fact, one of the reasons that, so I would have taken a risk, right? So there was a risk being taken both ways, as and when that happened, right? This is almost some 7-8 years back now, right? But as and when that happened, right, there was a risk being taken both ways. So I was taking a risk getting into an unknown area. Yeah, there was a risk being taken by the organization. So the backbone of the company is running on that supply chain, right? That falters, right? I mean, if you don't have products, then how are you going to get your revenues? If you don't have revenues, how will you get your profits? Right. So there was a risk being taken both ways. Yeah, it will be a little difficult in this hall to explain beyond this. You'll have to live through it a little. But as I said, the spirit of it, right? So it's not the rule largely, but the spirit of this is that beyond the initial few years, you should not, and it's good for you, right, that you don't expect arithmetic. You should, in fact, there is no reason why each one of you can also be aiming to be an outlier, right, and more importantly, a pioneer trying to create a path of your own. You need not follow the rule. Okay? What advice would you give to leverage my work experience to get into a marketing job? Yeah, that was that. very selfish question. Yeah.
I also asked like how best we can leverage these 2 years of ours in the college.
Okay. Yeah. So that one I'll answer.
Sure, sir.
Okay. All right. No, but I'll try and touch upon the other question of yours. You said 48 months, right? Okay. All right. Where did you work for 48 months? TCS. Okay. Did I quote TCS somewhere? I did. Okay. Okay. How many people from TCS out here? Very reluctantly hand being put up. That fellow's covering his face and putting his hand up. You don't remember me, Okay, great. It's a lovely organization. I own shares of that company, right? And even during these times. But anyways, leave that aside. So as I said, I think the biggest thing that's there in a management career, forget marketing, right? And obviously for marketing, you can obviously make a profile a little more beefier by taking up certain set of courses, doing certain projects and things on that front. But but that's from a very limited perspective and from a very risky perspective of only the placement offer of yours, because your interview window is very small, right? It's a very it's a very risky thing that you will be able to register your entire profile of work, right, within that limited window, even if you do get that window, right? So, but more importantly, right, there is a long window of almost 45 years of your work experience that you're going to show. The base has already started, which is what I said, in these 2 years, and actually it started even prior to this. But the point is that this is a critical part of that base. How do you expose yourself, right? In any management role, the biggest thing that is going to differentiate yourself, right, is going to be that it's IQ as well as competency for a certain area is considered a given, right? So there must be enough people in the world who are carrying the IQ of yours, in the world, at least in this campus and maybe equivalent campuses across, right, and that you will encounter in your work life later on. So that's a given. You are no longer a USP with your brains, right? After a few years, your USP and competency also disappears. And when I say competency, let's say for example, that you know how to work sales, let's say, right? Or you know how to do marketing, right? In a way, yeah. What will determine things down the line, right? And where I'm saying the base starts now, is the way you handle people around you, right? So people around you, people above you, and people below you, right? In the campus, you don't have people below you, most probably, right? But the point is that your capability of basically people management is what is going to be a critical determiner, right? Beyond this, once you cross this threshold of IQ and competency, and that ticker has already started for you all. Where did your campus start? Or that answer I didn't get. When did your campus start? Pardon? June. Okay, so about 3 months back, right? So 2 months back. Okay, chalo yaar, you all थोड़ा accurately calculate कर रहे हो, right? So your ticker has already started. Okay, all right. The other thing that you had on your 48 months, right? So there are two ways to look at it. You should look at it from two ways. One is that if you are wanting to look at it from a very narrow perspective, and this applies to a lot of other people, so leaving aside the jocular form that I tried to pull his leg on, but there are a lot of other people who feel that मैंने अपने 4 साल लगा दिए हैं यार, इसको कुछ तो leverage मिलना चाहिए मेरे को, right? I mean that's the basic instinct that he was coming out from his question, right? But however, please try and understand, right? The company doesn't care about your 4 years. The company is looking at basically it's a handshake. You're bringing your hand with a certain value, right? And the company is bringing its hand with a certain value as well as hopefully a salary, right? So the point is it's a handshake. That handshake is where you need to see whether you're bringing value onto the table. So for example, if right now at this stage in my life, I suddenly feel that yaar boss mere ko to I am inspired by PV Sindhu, I need to be a badminton player, right? Now, if I am going to go and tell Mr. Gopinath, right, Gopichand, sorry, right, if I go and tell Mr. Gopichand, right, that boss, यार मेरा तो 20 साल का experience है, you at least take me right up till the national level entry. What do you think he'll say? He'll say, you go back to the grind. You will start just like another 10-year-old fellow who's coming onto that court office. If he accepts me, that's a different matter. Right? What I could possibly leverage, look at it differently, what I could possibly leverage in this hypothetical scenario, right, is that if I am wanting to become a coach and I have got experience of how to manage the entire administration of that academy, right, that I can bring down value, but I'll need time to show it. Because I know how to administer, I know how to run that entire system, right. If I want him to basically set up more academies, I know how to add value to him, because that's what I've done most of my life, in a way. Right. But if I want to be a badminton player, then I need to be clear that I'm making that choice, right, then I'm not bringing value. I need to start with that 10-year-old guy. So not a very heartening reply, but that's how it is. Actually, I'm not going to be too popular after this. Okay. How to identify that marketing is the right career for us? Can you elaborate on that question? So what's the dilemma in your mind?
During placement times, it's very easy. Almost everyone does that. What people do is, we can easily mold ourselves into what company wants. For example, if it's a marketing firm, then we can always make our CV after that. We can talk and say, like, let's say we want to be a marketer. Similarly, we do something for a consultant. Before we do that, because everybody will do that, how do we identify that marketing is the career that I want to step into and I should work in this direction? When I ask others, they say that someone is the kind that you can identify. When you get into something,
Good advice. See, I have done computer engineering, right? I told you that, right? By the time I was in my second or third year, I realized that computer is not for me, right? I can't do all this, I can't sit in front of that computer. Nowadays, anyways, I bloody sit in front of it a lot, right? But however, I can't do that coding stuff and all that, right? Now, but that I realized only after I joined. Only after I'd finished 2 years of that damn thing, right? Most probably, if I had not got that damn admission, I would have most probably joined a career also, job. And who knows where I would have landed up. It was not that I was not good at it, but it's not something that I enjoyed. But I didn't know that before I went into that, the course, right? It's not that, there are those Sachin Tendulkars of the world, right, who realize very early in life that this is what I want to do. But you are not unique by having the dilemma even at this age. Right? Most people, I can guess, more than half of the number of people sitting here have a similar dilemma. And while one of the best ways to resolve the dilemma is to go through it, and the best experience, and which is why MBA courses in good campuses have the summer internship. That's in a way for self-discovery for you, right? Is this something that you want to do? So you go into a bank and then you find out this is what the bank fellows do. This is what your, the last year's batch which has joined this is the kind of job that they do. Is this what you're made up for? Is this what you want to do for rest of your life? And similarly, someone who joins, let's say, a sales role or whatever, sales and marketing role, HOB, right? So that's one of the best routes, right? However, that's not the only one, right? So maybe you have taken the effort of trying to at least touch base with some people, right? And therefore have this whatever that you said. Some others have not even taken that effort. So I was one of those people who had not taken that effort, right? So I had to go through the rigmarole, right? Maybe a little earlier actually, while doing that engineering, but you got to go through it. So you'll never be able to very clearly say that, this is what my calling is, right? You have a few, Sachins of the world who are very clear very early in their lives, right? But most of us are in the same boat. The more you expose yourself, yes. So you get a chance, you talk to industry professionals, right? You get a chance, you talk to your seniors who have joined various kind of jobs, right? Try and interact with them, try and find out what they do, yeah, right? Even when you do summer interns, right? You will be hopefully in a location where you will have your own colleagues right, sitting in this room who will be doing different kinds of summer internship. Try and find out what goes behind the scenes. Right? And that's how you will try and short circuit that process, unless you are the blessed Sachin Tendulkar. Hmm? How to identify that? How difficult is it to shift between industries? Who was that? Yeah. So why would that kind of a question come to you at this stage in your career?
Not right now, but in future, if you have to shift between industries, like marketing is like understanding the consumers, right? So in one industry, the thought process of consumers is different. When you shift to a different industry, the thought process is different. So marketing is like you have to make the consumer believe that your product is best. And when you want to do that, you need to understand how the mind of the consumer works. So for different products, I think differently. How would you understand both the things? And how difficult it will be for me to shift?
See, the fundamental does not change, right? So actually, from a FMCG perspective at least, right, or even FMCG consumer durables, right, it's a reasonably promiscuous industry, right? So people move around these industries. So today someone who's working in the toothpaste industry might be tomorrow working in the, in let's say the soaps business, right? Within companies there are verticals, right? So there are people who work yesterday in, let's say, biscuits, are working in dairy tomorrow, etc., etc. Obviously, each of these categories are different. But the fundamental is a similar thing. So it's not that difficult to make the transition. The larger transition that happens, right, is not across industries. Actually, that question is the challenge is transition across organizations. Right? So it's not the industry or challenge that is that large. There will obviously be nuances. So if you move from a personal care product to a food product, the nuance is very different, because food is something that is ingested, right? Personal care is applied or whatever, yeah, right? That dynamics of consumers' interaction with your product and brand is very different, yeah. So that does have its own challenge, but it's not that large. I mean, eventually, if you are the right oriented kind of a person, right, with the right background and fundamentals in terms of marketing and this thing. On consumers, you will be able to bridge across that transition. The bigger challenge that happens to most of us is the transition that happens across organizations, because you're not working in isolation. You're working as a part of a large ecosystem, and that ecosystem can can very quickly raise you to the top. That ecosystem can very easily engulf you also. Am I getting through? No. Am I getting through? What did I get through? Anyone understood what I said? The reason that I am stopping is I know that this is not going to be easy, what I said. But it's a very important question. I still feel it's not relevant at this stage in your career, but it's good that you're thinking on all these lines. I would love people who think on those lines. What did I mean by this difference of ecosystem can positively or negatively impact you? Has anyone experienced it in their
It's
career
like
till now?
saying you're different. So if you're different, you could be good different or bad different. So when you're coming from some other organization, if you have something which is different and it is good for the organization, it works out, then it can raise you to a different level. Otherwise, you might as well be one of the persons who is not followed by others.
No, you are the same person. You are the same girl who's going.
But
right?
then, if I'm the same as others in the company, standing out in the company,
Anyone wants to elaborate that better? She's hitting upon it in some form. Yeah. So different organizations have very different ethics and values. Not ethics, chalo. Ethics
So basically, every organization have a unique culture. So it depends how you set in that culture. So that's why setting in and adapting to that culture helps you. That becomes more difficult when you change your organization. Maybe the work will be similar, or adjusting to that work would be much faster or much easier, but adjusting to that culture, adjusting to their values, and maybe adjusting to the people around you will be much more difficult.
Is pretty much hit it. That's what you're trying to say? Someone was saying it there. What you were trying to say?
Sir, maybe it is about if you are in well in line with your manager, you will grow. If you are placed under a different, like the manager who is not at all growing, or if you are in conflict with the management, then you are finished at that stage only.
So, you know, there was a time when, we had these brilliant cricket players of ours, right? There was a Fab Four. Who were the Fab Four? Yeah, those four. Yeah, those. Anyway, so I know you all know it. Yeah, you all know it better than me. But there were those Fab Four, right? They took us at one point in time, right, to being the #1 test team in the world for a prolonged period of time, right? Not for a blip, right? We also won the World Cup during that same period. Who was the coach? Who was our coach that time? Jerry Kirsten. Prior to that, who was the coach? And we know what happened with him. That's the. So, there is a so obviously Greg Chappell didn't work for us, right? I mean, he might say that the team didn't work for him. But the point is effectively that combination of Indian cricket team and Greg Chappell didn't work. That is a fact. Now, whether this guy didn't work, that guy didn't work, both of them didn't work, whatever it is, right? But effectively that combination didn't work. We got out in the World Cup. Obviously there was enough bad blood that was floating around, all kinds of wrong messages and how do you say, the wrong kind of motivation was there within the players and stuff on that front, right? So it's a very similar thing, right? That you might land up. So so he has been brought up in a certain culture, right? Which might be in Australia supposedly, but the point is that that's not how the Indian culture is. Now it's a very global making statement, but it works on a very simple manner. That if someone says that 7 o'clock is training, right? He has been imbibed throughout his life for 60 years that 7 o'clock people are there. Whereas India में वो Indian standard time, चलो यार 7-5 हो गया क्या बड़ी बात है नहीं. I'm there for 4 hours. I'm going to sweat it out here. Come on, it's okay. 5 minutes I got late. I got stuck here. My tire puncture हो गया, ये हो गया, whatever, right? But the point is, this guy is not brought up that way. His entire background that he carries for so many years of his life is that 7 o'clock means 7 o'clock. And that might be a very small example. I don't know what exactly happened, but it presumably would have been something like that. There is nothing right or wrong in this. The issue is basically the people are coming with a very different baggage in their mind of how things work, how rules apply, how interactions happen. When I come and slap someone on his back, right, saying kya haal hai, right, it can be viewed very differently by different people because of the kind of background and culture that people come with. And therefore, transition across organizations is a bigger challenge. So you got to keep that in mind. That's a very big thing. People make, as I said, this the generation, right, and more so. So my father never changed job for his entire life, right. I have changed 2, right. So not that bad, but the point is that I've changed 2. He never changed it, right. So when I've changed my first one, when I moved out of Asian Paints, right, which is what I consider as my alma mater, right, in a way. Right, he was questioning me, why are you changing? Right, so in a way I was restless. Right. At that point in time I couldn't appreciate this. But the biggest change is not across industries, it's across organizations. And at times nothing in the world can compensate for a great profile fit. Okay, yeah. How different are sales and marketing? Who was that? तुम यानी 3 महीने हो गए हैं अभी तक मालूम नहीं सेल्स एंड मार्केटिंग क्या है loudly I know that's not what you meant how different are they in your job, how different are they in your job, and how do you
demarcate between them when you're working as such?
It will be a little difficult for me to answer, I mean, unless, you can go through real life situations. But it obviously works in a very integrated manner, right? However, in a very differentiated manner. So your question is actually pretty right. The point is that, so as I said, the key determiners to winning a consumer, which is what gets you revenue, which is what gets you profit, right, is to win that consumer has to go and pick your toothpaste when he goes to that outlet, right, or pick your biscuit, or pick your shampoo or whatever, right, has to pick that. Now for that, two things are critical. The consumer has to have, as I said, in his preferred set that your brand is there, should have a positive bias towards your brand, right, therefore hopefully is positively inclined to accept that brand or pull for that brand in that outlet, right. While simultaneously you can do all this, but in case you have done all this and the product is not there, right, especially from the Indian context, right, where the number of outlets and the spread of them is in the nooks and corners of the country, all that has gone down the drain. You're not going to wait and walk, as I said, 2 kilometers for it. So both of these have to work in conjunction if you want to make the fructification of all this, of both of them combining together, is that finally that consumer bought your product. He bought it, you got revenue. You got revenue, you got profit, right? But both are critical, and they have to work in conjunction. So just to let me give you a contra thing which you might not have thought of, right? So for example, let's say there is a new product being launched, right? So how do you come to know of a new product being launched? So tell me an example of the freshest product that you have heard in the FMCG industry.